Okay, the main things on this next test are going back and forth between the three forms, standard, vertex, and intercept, and that's how the study guide is going to start today. All right, so we need to change this into vertex form. In order to put this into vertex form, we need to complete the square. Because remember, vertex form is just like that, okay? All right, so we have x squared plus 8x plus 15. So when we complete the square, we have to take half of 8 and square it. Half of 8 is 4, and 4 times 4 is 16. But we didn't want to add 16, we wanted to add 15. So I need to take us back down to 15. And then we know we can condense this down, which is why we did it, to x plus 4 squared. And that 4 comes from half of this, or the square root of that, minus 1. And now it is in vertex form. That's all there is to it. A is 1 out here, nothing's written, we're all done. Change to intercept form, aka factored form. So this is the new form that we have, okay? So if we're going to do that, you take it out of, well, there's a few ways to do it, but what I would do is I would take it out of vertex form and take away 1. So if I FOIL that, or wait, actually, to have this in intercept form, let's not do it that way. Actually, back up. Let's do it from the original problem. So let's do this into factored form from here, okay? And you're going to see something similar. So remember factored form? That's when you can see the intercepts real clearly. So like that's this, okay? So we do that. We have to factor this in order to get it into something like that. And in order to do that, we make an x, and in the top of the x, we write 15. And in the bottom of the x, we write 8. And we ask ourselves what multiplies to 15 and adds to 8. That would be 5 and 3. So this tells us that this breaks down to x plus 3 and x plus 5. And that's intercept form. And the x-intercepts to this would be -3 and -5, but that comes later. All right, 2. 2, find the axis of symmetry. 2, find the vertex. Let's do the vertex first. The vertex would be -1, 8, because it's the opposite of that, right? Okay, the axis of symmetry, remember that's the line that goes up the middle of the parabola. It goes right up the vertex. Well, we know the vertex now. That's why I did the vertex first. And this line would be at x equals whatever this is, -1. Find the y-intercept. Okay, remember whenever you're finding the x or the y-intercept, all you have to do is make the other one 0. So I'm going to let's all write out the equation. So again, if they ask me to find the y-intercept, I make x 0. If I'm finding the x-intercept, I make y 0. So it's always the opposite one becomes 0. This is a lot of memorization, guys. So I'm going to rewrite this. Let's see what y is when x is 0. Well, 0 plus 1 is just 1, and 1 squared is 1, and 1 times -2 is -2. So the y-intercept is not -6, it's +6. So the best way you could write this is when x is 0, y is 6. Now the question is, what is x when y is 0? So now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to put 0 in for y and see what x is. So again, the whole equation I'm going to write out. Let's see, what was it? X plus 1 squared plus 8. But this time I have y equaling 0. Okay, this is trickier, so make sure to listen up. So from here, I need to solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. Okay, now I got to get rid of the negative 2. So that's a times negative 2. So I would divide both sides by negative 2. And negative 8 divided by negative 2 is 4. And then I'm left with x plus 1 squared. Now I got to get rid of the squared, and the opposite of squared is square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And the square root of 4 is positive negative 2. I'll explain that in a minute, is equal to x plus 1. Remember, the square root of 4 has two answers, okay? It is 2 and negative 2, because negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So what we have now is positive negative 2 equals x plus 1. Now we're going to take away 1 from each side, and you have two answers. Remember, because the parabola crosses twice. So one of those answers is negative 1 plus 2, and one of those answers is negative 1 minus 2. And negative 1 plus 2 is 1, and negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. So that number that I was looking for here is actually the point 1, 0, and then it has the other one, because it's intercepts, and then the other one is negative 3, 0. So when I go to graph this, all I have to do is put a dot at 1, 0, and a dot at negative 3, 0, and see what the parabola looks like. Well, we know what the y-intercept is because we solved for it here. The y-intercept is 0, 6, okay? Which is 0 over and 6 up right there, okay? Now I can kind of tell that right now I'm like, oh no, did I make a mistake? Because I'm picturing this parabola going, I don't draw this because it's wrong, but I was thinking, wait, that doesn't look right. But that y-intercept is not our vertex, okay? Our vertex is going to be something else. So at this time, I'd start thinking about what A is, okay? Well, what's A? A is negative 2, right? So remember, when A is negative 2, it's going to, oh, excuse me. Well, no, wait, do we have the vertex of this or not? Yes, we do. Well, we could just plot the vertex. The vertex is negative 1, positive 8. So let's see if this looks more symmetrical. If I go 1 left and 8 up, now it's looking like a parabola. And I've done everything, okay? All right, let's do the next one. Okay, now we're given this in factored form. Okay, so factored form, the easiest things to find are the x-intercepts. Okay, so remember, with the x-intercepts, what do we make y? We make y equal to 0. Okay, so if I have 0 equals 3, x minus 1, x plus 4, I'm just like, okay, what can I put here for x that'll give me 0? And that would be negative 4. Because if I put negative 4 right here, negative 4 plus 4 is 0. And that would give me 0. And whatever I multiply by here is going to equal 0. Because anything times 0 is 0. So I know one of them is negative 4. And then what would give me 0 here? That would be 1. So those are my x-intercepts. So x-intercepts are the easiest thing to spot when you're doing it out of factored form. Axis of symmetry, find the vertex, find the y-intercept. All that stuff is going to be a little bit harder out of factored form, but still not impossible. Okay, so I can think of a few ways to do this. I am just kind of thinking about this for a second here, because there are so many ways that I could do this. Take this problem. I'm going to do this. I'm going to convert it to another form. So I'm going to convert this into standard form. So in order to do that, I just need to multiply this out, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take x minus 1, and I'm actually going to multiply it by x plus 4. So I'm going to FOIL that, and then after I get it, I'm going to triple it. Let's see how that goes. So when I FOIL this, I get x squared plus 4x minus x minus 4, and then I get x squared plus 3x minus 4. Now all that stuff is times 3. So if I multiply that by 3, it gives me y is equal to 3x squared plus 9x minus 12. Okay? All right. Now, I got a lot of stuff up there, I know, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to complete the square and get it in vertex form, and then that will tell me what the vertex is, okay? So this one is quite challenging. I'm going to leave it in this form here, okay? So I'm going to go 3x squared plus 3x. And now, remember when you go to vertex form, this is where we have to complete the square. So we got to do half of 3 squared, or half of 3 squared. And that's going to give me 3 times 3 over 2 times 2. Nice. Okay, so we just added 9/4 to the problem. But in reality, we needed to take away 12. So what did we really add? We added 3 9/4. So that would be 3 over 9/4. I really added 27/4. Okay? And I needed to take away 12. Wow, this one is really tough. All right. So what I would do next is I would get this as a decimal. So in your calculator, go like 27 divided by 4. And that's going to give you 6.75. So we really added 6.75, but we needed to take away 12. So that means we need to take away 18.75, because 6.75 minus 18.75 is going to be equal to negative 12. Okay, so the vertex, we're almost there. 3, then we're going to have x plus half of 3 squared minus 18.75, making our vertex negative 3 over 2, comma, negative 18.75. Not a very pretty vertex on that problem. Okay, so for the y-intercept now, this should be a little bit easier. I could look at it in any form, really, but I know that in standard form, c is the y-intercept. So I know that the y-intercept must be negative 12. So it must be 0 minus 12. I also could have made x 0 to find the y-intercept. So if I make x 0, it gives me the y-intercept, which would be 3 times negative 1 times 4. And what's 3 times negative 1 times 4? It is negative 12. And then we need to graph it. So we go 0 minus 12, which is off the chart. And then the x-intercepts in the beginning were 1, 0, and negative 4, 0. And then the y-intercept was negative 3 over 2, which is like negative 1.5, and down 18.75, which is also off the graph. And then it comes up like this. And that is one hard problem, okay? So that is the first page of the study guide. Our standard form on this one was y equals 3x squared plus 9x minus 12. And over here, we would just, I'm running out of time on the video, but we would just have to like FOIL this, and it would give us the standard form, okay? So I may not have time to do it, but if you write down the vertex form and you FOIL that, we can do it. So okay, I'll do it with you. So x plus 1 squared FOILed would be x plus 1 times x plus 1, which is x squared plus 2x plus 1. And then you'd have to times that by negative 2, which would give me negative 2x squared minus 4x minus 2. So that's all this stuff. Okay, I FOILed it, then I times it by negative 2, and now I need to add 8 to it. So I get negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 6. Okay, so there is everything. I am out of time, but I think I realized I didn't graph this one, but I think that you guys can get that from everything. So that is a big first page video on that.